5 years! It's been 5 years since Three Houses came out, and man, have we had an interesting time since then. Of course, to this day, this continues to be the most popular Fire Emblem game in the series, and it continues to have quite a bit of discourse going on. It provided us with many highs, and also with a few lows, but of course, for me personally, it was some of the most fun times I had on YouTube as a Fire Emblem video maker. From the analysis videos to the collabs we had, Three Houses was truly a fantastic time. I even did my first Let's Play of the game on the channel, and while I'm not usually a Let's Play kind of person, I remember enjoying putting up those videos every day for people to see. So, why am I making this video? Well, it feels like it's been a long time since I've talked about Three Houses, and there are a number of topics I never explored that I'd love to sort of put miscellaneously into one video, and maybe we can reminisce about some of these together and you guys can tell me what you think in the comments. So, with that out of the way, let's jump right into things. One of the first things I remember about Three Houses was the discussion about whether or not Edelgard was going to be evil. I made a pre-release video about it, which still gets comments to this day, and I was eventually going to make an analysis video about it called Edelgard Did Nothing Wrong. That video never saw the light of day because as much as I loved Edelgard's development in the first half of the game, what they did to her in her route was quite inexcusable. I was crushed, and I was pretty upset that they made her out to be this all of a sudden incompetent leader that can't really do much without Byleth. It took the wind out of my sails in that department, and that video just never ended up seeing the light of day, and I think the script is still half written somewhere on my Google Drive, so maybe I'll find it and take a look for funsies. Some people would tell me to not incite Edelgard debates in the comments, but why not? Let's bring this back. How many of you guys are Edelgard fans, and do you think her general philosophy towards the crest system was bad? Honestly, I think she definitely had a noble cause, and her ideals are pretty much identical to Claude's if you think about it. In another world where I write the story, her and Claude would totally be on the same team. I did genuinely enjoy some of the twists about how close her relationship with Dimitri really was previously, and I think their dynamic as oil and water also worked really well for writing purposes. The contrast of red and blue being Fire Emblem's enemy and player colors just perfectly encapsulates the tug of war, literally, between the two sides, and I think they really nailed that tension in twisting them together. But I digress. Despite me wanting more out of this character from a writing purpose, I do think she serves the purpose of not only creating a spark for plot, but also a point of discussion that spanned the last 5 years, and I'm sure it'll span even more to come. Another topic that's constantly on my mind is the handling of Claude, and I know, there are a lot of Golden Deer fans out there that will probably try and cancel me for this, but I actually think it was a waste that Claude had his own route. But hear me out. Once upon a time, I had said that I think Claude's route is rather odd, and doesn't really seem that it fits the narrative. Dimitri fights Edelgard at the end and conquers his own personal demons. Edelgard fights Rhea, which, okay, fine, I guess. And Claude fights Nemesis, who, by the way, is a rather random as a final boss, but we'll get to that. Along the way, Claude also just shoulder checks those who slither in the dark, and I was like, huh? Isn't this supposed to be Edelgard's entire motive? Isn't she supposed to be the one getting rid of the crest system, but also getting rid of the people who experimented on her and her family and torturing her, causing her a lot of agony? It just didn't make sense. So I had a proposal, and again, I'd love to hear what you all think about this one as well, but I think Three Houses needed only 2 routes, Dimitri's route and Edelgard's route. And I think Dimitri's route should have been the main one that you're forced into when you start the game, and then Edelgard's route unlocks after that as sort of a bonus extra side campaign that you can do. I don't know what the hell Church route was supposed to accomplish, but it felt like a bit of a waste of my time the first time I played it, and I'll be honest, I don't even remember much of the conclusion to it. But back to my idea. I think Claude being described as a schemer should have been executed as exactly that. I think he should have played both sides of the Edelgard versus Dimitri conflict and then allied with the one that curried favor with him the most during the pre-time skip phase. It should have been a pre-time skip objective where you had certain events with him and his housemates that gained you a certain amount of points, and if you hit a certain threshold, then he joins you. That allows you to work him into the story while also utilizing him in the post-time skip in a unique and pretty memorable way. If you miss him, he allies against you and you have a harder time fighting the second half of the game, and if you recruit him, you gain some valuable allies and maybe weaken the enemy faction. It's like actual war. Having him be an attainable asset not only creates replay value in a more sort of concrete and deep sense, but also side objectives to fulfill, and also allows them to trim the fat on the story and remove both the church route and the golden deer route and really focus on fleshing out the other two both narratively and in terms of map design variety. This then brings me to another topic, and while you might assume I'm talking about the gameplay here, I'm not. I'm talking about the fleshed out characters. Three Houses really nailed it with its characters for the most part. Almost everyone has some fantastic development in their supports, and supports were easy enough to unlock and enjoy quick and early. The system was pretty seamless and really brought the characters to life. One of my personal favorite videos I made was the top 10 supports in Three Houses, and some of them genuinely blew me away more than I'd ever expected. Dorothea and Ferdinand, Linhart and Lysithea, Lorenz and Leonie, and the list goes on. But the point is that you really take these characters that on the surface might not seem much more than Geralt worshippers, and you elevate them to a higher level of character not only through exploring their personality, but also through engaging conversations about some of the most important themes in the game itself. The supports served a dual purpose here: character building and world building, and I think that was extremely important but also very effective when it came to marketing the game. Speaking of marketing, I think we can all admit that Three Houses had some banger marketing. I will legit never forget the E3 trailer for Three Houses that first revealed the time skip. I was at work that day, and I remember Nintendo's showcase was on during my lunch break. I went outside of the building and walked across the street to a random bench on the sidewalk and sat down and watched the entire thing. When the Three Houses trailer was over, I had goosebumps. It was incredible. The story was absolute hype. The characters were intriguing, and they threw us enough intrigue to grab not only the interest of Fire Emblem fans, but the general public, and that means it was truly special. In addition to that, I think I mentioned in my first paragraph that there were a lot of fun collabs going on, and honestly, I think the Three Houses era was probably peak Fire Emblem YouTube time as well. We had a thriving group of creators that all loved working with each other and were friends. The game and its audience was booming more than ever, and so the algorithm fed into each other easily, and there was a healthy amount of people who had been bridging the gap from Fire Emblem Heroes content to the mainline games, like myself, and were motivated to give their ideas and creativity to the scene. Now I can talk about the gameplay, because generally Three Houses gameplay was quite divisive. I probably expressed this opinion on live streams and videos somewhere, but I think too much of one thing ends up being an overdose and kills it, and that's exactly where I think Three Houses went wrong. It gives every unit a blank slate to do whatever you want with them, and they have a personal unique skill, but given the way the class system works, a lot of units just end up in the same classes if you want to optimize things, regardless of their minor differences in growths and base skills. I've been replaying Fates recently, and I actually think the way the class system works there is the way to go. You get a lot of flexibility through earning more classes and skills through marriage and friendship, but it doesn't break the game wide open since those options are limited in a sense. Three Houses also, while having a lot to do in the customization department, suffered from an overdose of Monastery. I think the first half of the game made sense for all the customization, but by the second half it was kind of pointless and I was getting rather bored. So, I don't know, does everyone feel the same about that, or is it just me? And now to one of my most controversial points that I had to kind of bite my tongue on the entire time. I think that Bernadetta is a terribly written character. I know, she's really popular and has a lot of fans, but hear me out, it's constructive, I promise. Bernadetta's backstory is actually not bad. It's just the way she's constantly handled as a joke is pretty much cringe, and every time she shows up in a C-rank support or interaction of any sort, it just made me hate listening to that interaction, especially since I went Black Eagles first. She's sort of the second sign to the coin of the more introverted character that has a darker side, and the more positive side of that coin is Marianne. The subtlety and depth of the handling of Marianne and how she actually grows into her own and blossoms into a powerful character post-time skip is incredible. She's easily the most well-written character in this game. There's subtlety in how they're handled and how Marianne's growth is shown, and while Bernie does have a few redeeming factors post-skip, she really does feel like the odd one out in the group that is basically the same person she is at the start of the game with some very minor improvements. If that's your thing, great. But in the grand scheme of things, they did her dirty and could have done her way, way better. But But yeah, that's the sort of snapshot look at some of the points about Three Houses that are more memorable to me, or things I never really got to put into video format. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below, and there will be another video up tomorrow for the continuation of the Sacred Stones series I've been doing, which, by the way, if you haven't seen for some reason, you definitely don't want to miss. Otherwise, happy 5-year anniversary to Fire Emblem Three Houses, and I'll see you all in the next video very soon. Peace.